Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Kim Lecher. Kim, excited to have you on the show.
Thank you, Gresh. It's really my pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. The pleasure is definitely all ours. You're doing so many phenomenal things. And of course, before we jumped into talking about some of those phenomenal things, I wanted to read a little bit more about Kim so you can hear about the things that he's doing. And Kim Leche is Chief Executive Officer at Typeform. Kim joined Typeform in 2018 as Chief Operating Officer, bringing more than 20 years of experience at high growth companies to focus on consolidating market leadership and ensuring operational effectiveness. Prior to Typeform, Kim held roles as COO and Chief Financial Officer at SocialPoint and has served in various leadership positions across sectors, including mobile gaming, e commerce, SaaS, online classified ads, and other technology enabled businesses. Kim is a graduate of SI Business School in Barcelona, Spain, and the Stanford University Executive Program. And I was listening to the interview with Kim, and he was talking about how he's very much so a builder, an internal learner, and always looking to kind of get outside of his comfort zone. And I thought the best definition of that was how I was listening that before he started at Typeform, he actually gave himself that early birthday gift because his birthday was right after he joined, and he thought that would be a really good thing to kind of start something new. So I feel like that's the definition of somebody getting outside of their comfort zone. And one of the quotes that resonated with me is he said, showing people individually how valuable they are and how they can contribute will make them more effective at their work. So, Kim, excited to have you on the show. Talk about all the awesome things you're doing. Are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, let's get it started then. So, to kind of kick everything off, I know I touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to rewind the clock, hear a little bit more on how you got started, what I call your CEO story.
So I will start from the beginning. You mentioned something that resonates completely. I believe I am a learner. I love to learn. And so my career started in a very large company. I was one person in one department in 100,000 plus people company. It was great in many ways, but I found out that I couldn't see the impact of my job, right? So it was so diluted in such a big company. So while I learned a lot and I liked it a lot, one of the things that I learned was that I needed to see that impact, right? And then I joined a consulting company because our companies, our customers were very big and they had important projects and they were paying a good amount of money to my employer to get those projects done faster, better, with higher probability and so on. And we were working in small teams. So what I was doing there, what everybody was doing there, was a lot more visible. So I could see the value of my job, right, and how that job was contributing to achieve ambitious goals and ambitious projects for my customers. So again, I learned that I like the very dynamic environment. I like the changing of context from one customer to the next, from one project to the next. But I also learned that while I was advising, I was not, and then of course making some things happen, but I was not really making the decisions. So that's what led me then to, take positions as executive in startup companies, right? And that's also something we can touch upon and why startup companies. But I wanted to make those decisions. So I took a number of positions, as you mentioned, in different industries, in different companies, as head of M&A and head of investor relations, as CFO, as COO. And then I learned a lot about all of those different positions. But what led me to become eventually the CEO of a company as I am today is that at some point what I learned is that I also wanted to be the ultimate responsible, right? And I think that's one of the things that the CEO is, which is the ultimate responsible for everything in a company, right?
Yeah, I love how all that, of course, comes full circle. And, you talked a lot about, not being able to see the impact within the larger organization. And now you're at a point where you are literally making those decisions. And I imagine doing that collectively. But at the same time, you probably have a lot more impact and a lot more kind of awareness around how that impact's going to go one way or another based off the decisions that you make.
Yes, yes. So, as a CEO, and we can touch upon that a lot more in detail, you are the ultimate responsible. That doesn't mean I make all the decisions. It would be bad because then I would be a bottleneck, basically. So I count on an excellent team, and they count on their also peers and their own teams to do the best for the company, right? So, in that sense, what I believe. Is that when things go well, it's because the team is doing a great job. But when things go bad, then it's the CEO's responsibility. That's one of those elements that would define, a little bit that sentence of the loneliness of the CEO, right? So um, you are there for the very tough decisions that nobody else wants to take. You are there for, um, uh, let's say, the crisis moments, right? When you need to lead and act, uh, and maybe do something that in the end it's going to be your ultimate responsibility.
Yeah, and that responsibility word is so huge, and just how the decisions you make sometimes don't make, or anything in between is often seen in the organization as a whole, the people within the organization, clients, customers. There's so much involved, but I love how you realize that, and then you charted that path, and your journey went along, setting you up to be able to kind of be where you are now. So absolutely appreciate that. So I wanted to drill down a little bit more, hear a little bit more about Typeform. Could you take us through exactly like how you're making that impact there, and taking on all that responsibility and having you and your team run with it?
Yes. So, well, I would speak maybe a bit about how I got there. So, having taken a number of executive positions at, let's say, the innovation economy or the tech economy or in different startups, um, at some point I couldn't see how I was going to help further the company I was working for. At that point, was a mobile gaming company that had been acquired. As a CEO and CFO, with some of those functions being transferred to headquarters of the acquirer, um, and not being myself a person that was able to contribute by creating a new game, a new product in that sense. uh, I was a little bit hesitant about how can I really contribute here. So I had met David and Robert, the co-founders of Typeform, sometime before. We Both offices were not far apart, so we would spend time together more or less every fortnight. I had the opportunity to get to know them personally a lot more, to understand uh, what they wanted, and why they created Typeform in the first moment. And so they first invited me actually to join the board. I did that for a number of months. So in addition to understand the vision and to know them well, I actually also got an insight into what they were doing and how things were going, right? So I decided to leave my employer. I was not thinking of having the CEO job at that point. That was something that I thought I wanted to do at some point, but not necessarily at that point. And and so they said, well, if you're looking for a job, why don't you join us? And you could be our COO, which is the same role I had in my previous employer, and let's make this happen, right? And so I joined Typeform because I could see myself working for them. They are absolutely great people, brave, humble, with their hearts in the right place, and I love the mission, or the vision of the company. And with my inside knowledge, I could see what kind of steps could be made to help the company get there. So I joined, and as you mentioned, I joined August 31st because September 1st is my birthday, and I wanted to give myself a new project, right? This is I find meaning in doing things that generate value, that create good options and good opportunities for others. And so I thought this is going to be a new adventure. Let's give myself the present of a new adventure. And so I joined them, and kind of those things that I thought were needed. That's where I started, right? Even with the same role of COO, I started to put in place a number of things. For instance, one of the key things was we have a great vision. We know where we want to go. We don't know exactly what's going to take us there. So let's create plans step by step on how to get there. We have, and we already had back then, a great product loved by many people and used by thousands, tens of thousands of people. But we this product is very horizontal. Everybody can use it for many different reasons. And so what was needed is a clear, let's say, understanding of the customer. So we have the product, we can learn more about the customer. And also the company back then was already one of the best performing companies in the Spanish ecosystem. And so, looking at the world and looking at the opportunity that Typeform had and has, what I thought is that we needed also, let's say, greater ambition, right? So, I think that the first three things I started pushing for and creating, let's say, or bringing my contribution was along these three lines. You know, clearer plans, bring the customer front and forward, and let's raise that ambition. Let's try to be not one of the best startup companies in Spain, but let's try to be one of the best startup companies in the world.
Mhm. I absolutely love that, and especially like as you seem very methodical in terms of like how you're going on to your next step in your next venture. And I think there's so many times where we can get so caught into the organization that we're a part of, the title that we have. But I love how you saw those opportunities to make a bigger impact and how that aligns with everything that we've been talking about along your journey. It almost sounds like that's a filter that you go through and say, okay, how can I make that impact and in what ways, and set out that plan to do that. I feel like that's something that again we can get caught into the company name, or even the title that we have. But I feel like being able to and understanding and drilling it down to that impact is ultimately what we're all trying to do in the grand scheme of things.
Yes, absolutely. I think that at least that's, as I said, I'm a learner, and by trying to create value, right? So things in different companies will go, let's say, well in any case, right? So given time, given, I mean, there's always, different months and different years where things are better, things are worse, but companies kind of go in a certain direction. Um, I think that's for me the baseline, and then on top of that baseline, this is where you contribute, where you create that positive gap or alpha, right? And by doing that, you are not only around success, you are creating success, and I think that's a learning experience because you start with a lot of hypotheses, right? So what will bring me from here to there, or what will bring us as a company from here to there, and then and then some of those hypotheses you find out they were wrong, right? So it's a humbling experience, but because maybe we grow up and we do well in school and we do well in the different things that we apply ourselves to. And then you get to these places, especially in startups, early stage startups, where a lot needs to be discovered, and that's the humbling experience of learning that a lot of things you try, they are not the right way, right? But there's also always that excitement of, okay, I'll learn the way, right? So I heard that sentence of Edison: I don't know one way of creating a light bulb, I know 1,000 ways of not creating a light bulb. So I guess it's part of that process of learning.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think so many times when, we experience failure or experience things that don't go the way we want them to go, we can automatically write them off as, oh, this wasn't valuable. We didn't take anything away from it. But just like you said, that Edison quote says as well, too, you actually use those as metrics or points or data points to know I may not know how to do it. I know how not to do it though. And that ends up being extremely valuable to catapult you to where you need to be.
Yes, and to earlier stage CEOs, founders, right? So that element of learning, of being humble, and also that also comes together with the grit, right? So especially nowadays, right? So I've been talking to some of my peers in maybe smaller companies, and like a couple of years ago, companies were flush with money. They just decided to purchase services, software, whatever they needed. They didn't think much about that. Today, companies think a lot more about this, and this has changed, right? The environment, the context for a lot of the startups, and it's not so easy to find that product market fit. It's not so easy to convince companies to buy your service. So I guess one of the elements that people need is true grit, right? And have that capacity to learn by making a lot of mistakes until you find the way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something big because I think so many times that you hear success, hear what leads to success. You don't see all the things that didn't go right. Often you just see the one thing that did go right, but behind the scenes, behind the curtain, so to speak, you start to see those things and those steps and the things that kind of attract people to, what ends up being success. But of course, that's not the story that's always told nearly as much. So I appreciate you, sharing more about that. Is that a lot of like what you saw like kind of happening with Typeform as you heard the mission and vision from the founders and we're spending time there. Do you think that's what kind of attracted you and helped you as you kind of got into the current role that are in now?
Yeah, so specifically three things, right? So I could see myself working for and working with them, and I think a lot of people really want to work with people that they like, that they can follow, or that they can, help, and they will be happy by helping them, by assisting them, by being part of their teams, right? So that's definitely so. When I started, I think we want a worthwhile mission or vision, right? So one of the things around that is I speak about having a clear goal, and also having a goal that is worth having, right? So if you're gonna do something, if you're gonna devote your experience, your talent, your knowledge, your time, and so all that investment is better when the goal is worth it, right? When you really want to achieve something that resonates with you as a person. So I could, let's say, attach myself to that vision of Typeform. And the third thing, since I want to create value, I want to be of value, I want to be helpful, and I also know my own limitations, my skills, and where these skills apply best. I had to see, that was applicable, that I was going to help really the company, right? So there's an element of talent that is contextual, right? So I cannot be as useful in every context or in every situation. There's things I know, there's things that adapt better to who I am. So in that sense, I could also see that, and I think that was my experience then. And I think that when, for instance, building teams, which is another one of those CEO roles, build your team, empower your team, support your team, and motivate your team. You also want to bring in people that possibly across these three different elements, right? So we can work well together. They find our vision and worth pursuing, and they have the right skills, the right profile, and so on to succeed, right? Because their talent matches the needs of the company, and contextually, then they will be able to thrive.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I often say, like, so often we forget about what I call a human aspect of business and how important that is to help to achieve that mission and vision. And just reading a lot and before this interview, I know that's something that I feel like you believe and you echo as well too, even with everything that Typeform is doing and creating. So I wanted to drill down a little bit more. Could you take us through a little bit more on what that experience looks like somebody's working through and with Typeform? Like how are you making that impact for the clients that you all are serving?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So um, that goes back maybe to the very early days. There is something I believe in is that companies are a bit like people, so they are born with a certain DNA, and then they develop right in different ways. So going back to that birth stage of Typeform, two people, our two co-founders, David and Robert, were asked by a customer that they were already working on for a form. So basically, the idea was, I need you to provide me with a form, and because I will be applying this in these circumstances, right? It was a showroom, a form on a tablet to collect personal information of people visiting the showroom and who might want to follow up with more information about some of the products in the showroom. So that was like the problem statement, and I think that that was kind of a small problem statement, but I believe that companies start with something that they want to solve, right? So in one way or another, you see there's an opportunity, you see there's something that is not working, and you want to solve that. So that was one thing. I mean, forms existed back in the day, so, but something that they did, and most successful entrepreneurs also do is, okay, this might not exist, and so how I can do this, or this might exist, but how can I do it better? How can I do it differently, right? So every startup, in a way, wants to disrupt, and that disruption comes from doing something that does not exist, and then it will exist from now on, or that it exists in some form, but it can be better, right? So that was another element. Then the company and that first product idea comes also from the DNA of the founders. They were designers, right? They are designers, and so they think through problems through that design and design driven kind of thought. So here the idea was, okay, if people come here and we are going to ask for valuable information to these people, how can we do this in a way that provides a great experience to the respondent, right? And this is one of the first pillars, right? So one of the two first pillars of the company. So it's based on two pillars. One is that interaction will happen, but people are, let's say, providing valuable information. So let's make that experience a great experience for them. So first pillar is respondent experience first, or respondent first, right? And they thought that by creating that better experience, respondents will respond adequately to that, would react well to that, which benefits the customer, because then the customer gets more information, more truthful information, uh, better information, right? Through that increased engagement of the respondent. The other pillar that they thought well in the very beginning was, this is a professional tool, so there is a professional behind this, but that doesn't mean it has to be very difficult, right? So why don't we make it in a way? Why don't we design it in a way that it's very easy to use, right? And that's where the creator experience comes into place, right? And that's maybe one of those first ideas that now is more or less coined as the consumerization of B2B, the no code, low code, or the self-serve type of professional product. So the respondent experience, the creator experience, I would say that the final inspiration came from a movie, actually, and that was a movie where a computer was asking questions and answering questions to humans. um, so they thought, well, collecting information could be a conversational activity, right? Where we don't say name and a box and surname and a box and email and a box and submit, but where the computer basically asks, "Hi there, what's your name?" Right? And oh, great, Joaquim, and what's your surname? Right? And so on and so forth. So that was kind of the very very beginning of Typeform, and and so if you think about this, um, all sorts of professions like a marketer, a salesperson, a product person, an HR person will have to talk to people, right? They can be working in small, mid-sized, or larger companies. They can be in the US, in Europe, or in Brazil, or in India. They might have different goals with that. So maybe acquiring a user, qualifying a user, maybe nurturing with more information a potential customer, maybe acquiring or bringing a candidate to a hiring process, maybe just getting feedback for a feature or functionality. So there's all of these things. So they thought in a world where the interactions between businesses of different types and people, their most valued audiences, is increasingly more and more happening online, asynchronous. Why is this interaction not a very human interaction, a very conversational interaction? And they set themselves up to build a company and build a product that could be almost like the interface of internet, the tool that makes webs conversational, right? And I love that. I love the fact that through a good conversation, you get that engagement. You create frictionless kind of data collection. You can use that not only to get very important information directly from the humans and the most valued audiences, like prospect customers, customers themselves, maybe candidates, no, in a world where talent is so important. You get that information directly from them, and this applies to everyone everywhere, right? So in a way, um, thinking of a company that can have a global impact was very is of course still today very very appealing to me.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I almost wonder if that's like part of like the secret sauce that could be for you or the organization is really being dialed into that humanistic standpoint and how everything is created and just kind of asking, like you said, the founders asked, why not? Why can't you have this be like a very much back and forth, like a really good, tennis match, and where you having that back and forth conversation? And you get that feel when you go through, each of the forms, the type forms, and you feel like you are having that conversation. And I think by, having founders and people that, are able to execute on that, you ask why not, and then you're able to execute that, and then you get a really great experience, as you said, for the people that have designed and created and developed the forums, or for those people that are actually responding as well too. You get that overall great experience. So I don't know if you feel like that understanding of that human element and not being afraid to ask why not, and then actually do it as part of like the organization's secret sauce at the very least.
Absolutely. I think that, let's say, speaks to founders and CEOs that well, at the very early stage is necessarily both in one, or at least a founder, right? That thinks there is an opportunity here, there is a problem here, there is a different way. So asking why not this, and as I said, a humbling learning experience where maybe the first idea is not the perfect idea. Maybe the first idea is the right idea, but the first execution of that idea is not the best execution of that idea. These are all a lot of humbling moments where we confront our own um, fears,
Assumptions.
right? Fears
Yeah.
for failure. But through that grit and maybe through the passion of seeing something that is not for oneself, is maybe something for somebody else that you want to really make possible, then you go through that, right? Today, I would say Typeform is mostly, let's say, highly valued by people who value their audiences a lot. So typically, marketers or salespeople, they don't have the guarantee that their audiences will respond to their approaches, right, to their interactions, right. So they have to create something that is different, that is beautiful, that is a good experience, right. And so because of these, we have more than 150,000 customers in the world. We help them collect and complete, let's say, from beginning to finish, almost 600 million responses, right, or
Wow.
submissions per year. So this is something that has been over the last 8 to 10 years been growing. But I would say that very, very humbly, when somebody looks at that and thinks, wow, this is a success story, probably, they went from zero to this place, and everything was, well, I mean, there's a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of, iterations and changes along the way. So I think also I would, let's say, look at the successful experiences, and in my position, I'm looking at successful experiences that are much beyond where we are today, and that's where we want to be, maybe in 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? But also understand that the process of getting there is, it's not easy, it's messy, and it's normal. That is like that. I mean, you should expect that, and therefore, when some you have to confront difficulties, know that you're not alone, and that this happens always. It's very natural, and you have to, yeah, confront them, and go forward and find a way, right.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. That's why I love that quote that you talked about with Einstein. As much as there is the light bulb, there's so many non-light bulbs that are lying around that we don't often see. And I think it's so important that we, as we pay homage to like the light bulb and the awesome things that you all have been able to do, we also appreciate you sharing all the behind the scenes and how those things sometimes don't always kind of come to fruition or go as straight and narrow as it sometimes seems. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit. And I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this is a little bit more app, book, or habit that you have, but what's something you feel like makes you more effective and efficient?
Yes, I would say that. So one of the things that I do is combine, let's say, a lot of reading with deep reflection, right? And that reflection um, gets me to a point where what I speak a lot about is clarity, right? And and that reflection is also one process where I try to understand, the situation, and why the situation, and how do I feel about this situation, and why do I feel like that in that situation. And and I also incorporate people, right? So I talk to people about these things. So I read a lot about, for instance, biographies, people that have been in, leading in situations that were historically uh, very important, sometimes very difficult as well. And then I try to use all of these to think about my problem. Sometimes I think, how would that person, um, what would that person do? How would that person think about this or approach this, right? So that's one of the things that I do. Reflection for me is very important, and maybe a more specific hack is I wake up every day. I wake up early. I'm an early bird, and the first thing I do always is a long coffee and my journal, right? And in my journal, what I do as I wake up and, let's say, breathe a bit, is reflect on the day before, what happened. And I have had, maybe, I have had time to find the essence of that through that resting time, right? And then I also think about the day ahead, right? And the present day, and what is important for that day. So maybe the hack here is not to jump on an email or a short message or something that will change your priorities. It's more about being present, reflecting on where you are, reflecting on what's most important, maybe thinking through these problems as well, with all those references that you can have in your head by reading a lot, by maybe having spoken with some people, and then start the day, right, and make the most of this day, right, and tomorrow it's another day, and then the day after tomorrow it's going to be also another day. So but that's maybe the hack. I have spoken with a lot of people that immediately jump to emails or open their phones, and then I think that they are basically reacting to what's coming to them. So I prefer to be proactive with my priorities, with what's most important for the company or the people in the company, and then let's say react to other things in specific blocks of time during the day, right? So I also sign that during the day, so I can do both, but I lean on the first.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I appreciate you talking about, especially how you do that in the beginning of the day, because I think there's probably a lot more reacting that happens later on in the day as, the emails start to open up, the hours of operation start to happen a lot more. But I love that reflection piece because I know you talked about it in the beginning around reading and reflecting, and also, of course, having and going through experiences as far as reflecting, because I think so many times we get like sometimes a lesson or we get a nugget or a tidbit or whatever. But sometimes when we actually reflect upon it, that lets us kind of ruminate and we start to maybe even understand how it's applicable in certain instances or where we're at. And that's why I've even read a lot where if you read a book at one time in your life and you read the same book at another time in your life, it's going to have an entirely different effect upon you because
Yeah.
of the different instances that you're at. So it kind of sounds like that's what you're alluding to. That reflection piece is so important because it allows you to say, okay, I learned this now. How does it affect or can it not affect or whatever we take away from it?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, exactly what you said. I mean, you read that and you kind of interpret your reality through what you're reading, right? So you almost read different books because you are in different realities, but you connect the points, right, of your reality with what you're reading. So that's one thing. And also, when you read the history biographies and that. You can also have a lot more perspective. So sometimes, um, the best way to think about something is getting a much bigger perspective on it, right? So not trying to solve the very immediate thing, or maybe think about it in a way that is um, maybe you would be more worried if you didn't know that this can occur, that this happens, that this has happened in the past, and that eventually, there's going to be a solution. So how you how that predisposes your mindset, or how that helps you approach in one way or another, that's also very important. So yeah, biographies, history for that perspective, and then business books and other books, let's say, in that sense, because it allows you to connect with whatever is that, right? So the strategy or product roadmaps or whatever is in your head that day.
Yeah, I love that, and especially that exercise in terms of like how would this person answer that question. I'm a former English major, so always thinking about how you can write books from different perspectives is always something I remember. But I just love how that you can adapt that same mentality to like business problems you're going through that some historical person that you might be reading about would have approached that. So just going through that is such a powerful hack. So absolutely appreciate that. So what about now for a CEO nugget? This is a little bit more word of wisdom or piece of advice. I like to say it might be something you would tell your favorite client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Yeah, I guess that maybe I would then link to the word that I said, clarity, right? So mm, we can approach it in different ways. You need to be proactive and react and not reactive. You get clarity through that process of reflection. So it kind of resonates with what we've been talking about. If I had to go deeper into clarity, clarity of the goal, clarity of the process to get to the goal, clarity of the communication, right? So clarity applies to different elements, and there's a bit of a cascading in that, right? So clarity of the goal for me is understanding the goal, truly understanding the goal, and also truly understanding that that goal is worth, right? So it's a goal worth achieving. One thing I've learned, for instance, is that in a team, if you have one purpose, right, then you start working as a one team, right? So even in the leadership team, one of the things that we say is you are leaders of your functions, but here you are leaders of Typeform, and you could be in different places working in different companies, but we are here. So something brings us here together, all of us, and that is the one goal, the one purpose, right? So this is maybe an example of a goal that has to be clear and a goal that has to be worth, because otherwise some people would say, well, but I don't care about this. So I'm here, but I just really don't care about that. Right? So one goal, and then the clarity of how to get there. So a lot of times I've seen maybe related to the idea of having the vision, but not the path towards the vision, not even the hypothesis or the steps that hypothetically, right, expectedly will bring us there. And that clarity is also a very clear formulation of if we do this, it will allow us to get that. And by getting that, we will get to the goal. And then you can actually test that, right, and be quite agile in testing that, because it's very specific. It's something that you can control, that you can say, okay, it's going to take me maybe a month or 2 months, depending on what is, let's say, what it implies. But because it's very specific, you can set people to that, and or yourself to that, and you can test it, and then you can learn. You can learn, oh, this is bringing the results that I expected, or not, right? But a lot of times we're not that clear. We might, something might be, um, let's say, hindering that clarity. Maybe we are scared about the trade-offs. Maybe, and that would talk about all those difficult decisions that leaders need to make, right? So clarity around that, and I think that when that is clear, we do this, we know why we do this, we know how to go about it. It's very easy to communicate, right? So you can communicate it. Even I don't think I am a great communicator, but I have people around me that help me, right? And let's say, help me be the best version of myself, even in something that as an introvert, and as some, maybe not using my native language and so on, it still can come across clearly enough, right? So in that sense, clarity of communication, because in the end, as the organizations grow, well, I mean, definitely, you need people, and you need people to know exactly where we're going and why we're going there, and how we are going to achieve that, so that they can help everybody else. We can help the company get there, right? So clarity is very important. I don't think we think about it enough. I don't think we are always as clear as we could be
Yeah,
for
and I
different
appreciate.
reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate how each of those build upon each other, goal, process, and communication. And how if you don't have a goal, it's very hard to make sure that you're communicating accurately and effectively. And I love how they intertwine each other and even build upon each other, because I think, and even I truly feel like we think that sometimes that ability to have the clarity comes from or just happens, but I feel like you have to work at clarity. And a lot of times that's going through and getting that clarity by talking with other people around. Do you understand what I'm saying? I think we sometimes don't realize that it doesn't just happen. It happens actually from working to really understand the root of, like you said, your goal, your mission, and also, is it worth even doing, as you said so well, too?
Yes, yes, and that applies to very high level stuff. but it also applies to, sometimes elements in one functional plan. Uh, and I'm sure that everybody in an organization will want to apply their time to the biggest problem, to the thing that will make the most needle moving movement, right? And so again, it's about being clear, um, and then aligning everybody through that clear communication as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to ask you now my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. We might have already touched on this, but Kim, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I can relate to a personal experience. I had moved to Typeform as COO, and a month and a half in the job, David and Robert said, "Look, we would like you to step up and become the CEO." And well, through a number of three questions as well, I accepted that. And then not too much later, I was riding my bicycle, and I also use these moments where maybe my mind flows a little bit more free. Maybe it's the oxygen going through the brain or something because of the sports. But I thought, wow, look at that. I'm the first time CEO, so I had never been a CEO before, in a new company, in a new industry, and also with a new team, right? Because everything was new. I mean, I had been in the company for a month and a half. So it struck me as, okay, a big challenge, and I need to learn quickly about it, right? So that same question came to my mind, like, by the way, what does a CEO do, right? So, and well, after 5.5 years, I think the answer is, at least for me, and I would say that uh, people in with the same title in different circumstances in different companies will have a very good and different answer to this. My personal answer is, first of all, it goes back to that responsibility. So the CEO is the person that has to make the toughest calls, right? Um, the biggest trade-offs, has to maybe there's two opportunities, but every opportunity comes with risks. If we go here, we might not be able to turn back. We might not be able to go there. So there's a cost of opportunity. There's risks involved in going in that direction. You might not be able to come back. It's one way door, right? So uh, and who takes that decision, right? So I mean, yeah, the CEO, right? You can use a lot of feedback input. uh, Everybody will be bringing their best thoughts, and you can use that to fit and inform your decision, but in the end it will be your decision, right? And I think that's one of the big things where the CEO, even with a great group around, great team around, will still be okay, the ultimate responsible. And we might be taking a decision here that is fatal, no, at some point. So um, that's for me one of the key things, right? In crisis, this also happens, right? So we collect data for our customers. Data privacy and security is absolutely a key thing for us. We do everything we can to be at the best level. But if something would happen, if there was a data leakage or something, that's the place where the CEO also needs to be forefront and take the hit, because in the end you are the ultimate responsible for this. Um, I think also, I believe that in today's world there's nothing worth pursuing, no big project or ambitious goal that you can do on your own. So you need a team, you need to build an organization, right? And in that sense, that's the other very big job, right, of the CEO. We are in talent-based organizations. Um, Hiring, convincing people to join you, the right people to join you, is difficult at every stage, right? So at the beginning, nobody knows you. You don't have a brand. You don't have. It's maybe a more risky project. So in that situation, it's difficult to convince people. But in our situation, it's not easier, right? It's easier in some aspects. It's not easy in other aspects. So the hiring is difficult. Um, Empowering them, supporting them, right? It's also very, very important so that they can become the very best versions of themselves as well. And then by doing that, they can help you, right? So it's um, motivating, right? So day in, day out, there's a lot of situations, as I said, these overnight successes never happen overnight. Never, it's like a straight line from success to success. There's a lot of peaks and valleys, and there's a lot of also motivation, encouragement for them to also make the difficult decisions that they have to do also in their leadership position. So I think that a builder of teams, um, an empowerer of people, so that they can be the best that they can be for the company. I would say these two elements are absolutely critical. Responsibility on the decisions, on the crisis, and also, let's say, building the teams. And then the CEO, maybe as a third element. I'm here today, I'm representing Typeform, right? So the CEO also has a bit more of that visibility, and there is a certain responsibility to that visibility. So people will think of Typeform through the product, of course. That's our key ambassador, but also by what some of the leaders say, and and how they act and how they behave. And in that sense, let's say one of these, maybe the most visible leader in that sense. And I have to, authentically embody the values of the company, and in a way, I'm also representing the company here and in other events, right? So that's also part of the CEO job.
Nice. I absolutely love, all three of those aspects, almost like three pillars, and know how important that responsibility is, of course, in how impactful it is to have a team. And then, as you said so well, like having the visibility to get the name of the organization out there for people to know and even know why, it's created. I think bringing those two things together is when you really hit a phenomenal spot. So truly appreciate that definition. I feel like I don't have a bike, but I need to get on it. Maybe I get on my Peloton and I'll come up with great ideas like that. So I think that's phenomenal that you had all those ideas, just, riding the bike and how, that flow allows you to have clarity around what exactly it is that you're doing to make that impact. So, Kim, truly appreciate that definition, as I said. And of course, I appreciate your time even more. So, what I wanted to do now is pass you the mic, so to speak, just see if there's anything additional that you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you, your team, find about all the awesome things you all are working on.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's been absolutely great. Something I want to say before we finish, in any case, is that the very, very important, necessary, and basic ingredient of any interview or podcast are the questions, right? So you tee off your guests in the right way. So, and in that sense, I mean, I've really enjoyed it. I really love the questions, and I think these questions made everything easy, right, for me, and also hopefully it brings value to the people that are also listening. With that said, maybe just a quick thought. We've been in a couple of years as CEOs, as founders of companies. We have had to take very, very difficult decisions, sometimes even involving reducing our burn, which basically means also most of the times reducing our headcount. Very, very difficult decisions here. Um, I want to encourage a lot people. I mean, this is difficult for everyone, but maybe I'm thinking more about growth, right? And maybe start looking at the future, and less about the past. Thinking about the opportunities we now have, the challenges also of getting into that growth in an efficient way. And one of the things that we are doing at Typeform is thinking how we can transform our product, bring more value through our product, and think of our funnel, people that visit our webs and then subscribe to the product, or sign up to the product, and how we can create the very best, let's say, more personalized, more meaningful journeys for them, right? And so I think that maybe I'm just encouraging people to think positively about the future, and to really start thinking about how to grow and truly grow efficiently. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Kim. We're going to have the links and information as well in the show notes so that everybody can get a hold of you and all the awesome things you and your team are working on. But I love and appreciate that last part about the transformation. I think we as individuals are always kind of looking for that transformation. And I think as organizations that are serving ultimately organizations and people, we also should be transforming as well too. And I think so many times we can skip past that. But understanding that, understanding the awesome experience that you all are having, I definitely appreciate the kind words you said. As easy as it is sometimes to ask questions, I think it's easier when you have great guests that are doing phenomenal things. So thank you for bringing that home with us today, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you. Likewise.